Welcome back to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we recalibrate your biology and rediscover your direction. I'm your host, Brandon Soika, and today we're starting at the beginning. Because before your body can heal, optimize, or perform, it asks one question first. Am I safe? Let's explore what that really means and why it might be the reason you're still feeling stuck, even when you're doing everything right. Now, let me ask you something that might sound strange. What if your body isn't tired because you're out of shape, or you're broken, or just not trying hard enough? What if it's just scared? Now, I don't mean scared in the way we usually think about fear. I'm not talking about horror movies or panic attacks or running from danger. I'm talking about a deeper, quieter kind of fear. The kind your biology feels when it isn't sure the environment is safe to relax, to digest, to repair, to turn on the lights and do its best work. This is the real starting point of health. Not calories, not cardio, not supplements, safety. See, your biology only asks one question first, and it asks that same question constantly. Am I safe? If the answer is yes, your body opens up. Energy flows, hormones regulate, your digestion works, your immune system stays calm, you think clearly, you sleep deeply. But if the answer is no, even subtly no, everything starts to shut down. And here's the tricky part. Your brain might feel fine. You might be powering through your day, handling work, checking boxes, hitting the gym. But your biology, it knows. It's listening to signals underneath the surface, signals from your gut, your liver, your immune system, your microbiome. And if those signals say threat, from processed foods, sleep deprivation, chronic inflammation, or emotional stress, then your entire system starts to recalibrate around survival, not optimization. This is why so many people feel stuck. They try to eat better, exercise more, take supplements, and still feel bloated, tired, inflamed, and frustrated. It's not because they're failing. It's because their biology is still whispering. Not yet. It's not safe to change. Let me tell you something from my own life. There was a time when I thought I was doing everything right. Clean eating, lifting weights, supplements, discipline on point. But my energy was inconsistent. My digestion was a little off track. I had this low level of irritability that I couldn't explain. And most importantly, I didn't feel calm. I didn't feel grounded. I didn't feel safe. And that word kept coming up, safe. When I finally zoomed out, I realized something huge. My system was still running on threat mode. I hadn't given my body a real reason to trust the environment it was living in. I was doing the inputs, but skipping the foundation. So that's where we're starting today, with the foundation. Because when your biology doesn't feel safe, nothing else works the way it should. No diet, no training, no protocol, no lab tests, nothing. But when your biology does feel safe, that's when the magic happens. That's when the gut begins to heal, the immune system resets, and your body stops holding on to inflammation like armor. So if you've been feeling stuck, if you're bloated, inflamed, anxious, or exhausted, and no amount of willpower seems to fix it, start here. This episode will take you into the biology of safety through the gut, the liver, the immune system, and the microbiome. But more than that, it'll help you reconnect with a part of your body you may have been ignoring. The part that just wants to know you're safe. Because that's not just the first question your body asks. It's the one everything else depends on. Let's peel back the layers. When your body asks, am I safe? It's not waiting for your conscious brain to answer. It's asking your gut, your liver, and your immune system. This trio, the gut-liver immune axis, is your body's internal homeland security, constantly surveilling, constantly communicating, constantly deciding, threat or trust. Now let's start with the gut. Your gut isn't just a digestive tube, it's a sensor, lined with more neurons than your spinal cord. It's home to trillions of microbes that interact with your immune system in real time. Think of your gut lining as the border wall. What gets through? What gets flagged? What sets off alarms? When you eat processed food, when your microbiome is out of balance, when you're chronically stressed, those tight junctions in your gut lining loosen. Microscopic gaps form, and little bits of bacteria, food particles, and toxins slip into the bloodstream. Your immune system sees them and panics. But here's where it gets even more important. Every drop of blood leaving your gut heads straight to your liver. This is your second line of defense, the ultimate metabolic checkpoint. It's like customs at the airport, scanning every molecule for danger. If the liver senses infection, toxins, or signs of gut distress, it triggers inflammation. It pumps out proteins that tell the immune system something's off, stay on high alert. Now imagine this happens every single day. Tiny gut leaks, low-level liver alerts, constant immune whispering, threat, threat, threat. You may not feel sick, but you don't feel well either. You're tired after meals, you feel foggy in the afternoon, you wake up puffy or inflamed or moody and can't explain why. This is what we call subclinical dysfunction, when your system is still functioning, but everything's dimmed, slowed, cautious, because safety hasn't been restored. And here's the catch. You don't have to have a GI diagnosis to have gut-liver immune dysfunction. You can have no IBS, no IBD, no labs out of range, and still be running on an internal safety deficit. You could be walking around in a body that looks okay on paper but feels misaligned every day. The gut-liver immune axis doesn't wait for disease. It flags misalignment the moment your inner environment feels unfamiliar or untrustworthy. This is why people with brain fog often don't need a nootropic. They need a microbiome reset. Why people with stubborn weight gain often don't need to restrict more. They need to calm the immune system. Why people with anxiety often don't need another stimulant. They need a safer internal rhythm. Let me give you a visual. Picture a relay race. The baton is passed from your gut to your liver to your immune system. But if the baton is covered in alarm signals, lipopolysaccharides from bacteria, oxidized fats, inflammatory compounds, then the handoff becomes chaotic. The immune system drops the baton, panics, and hits the red button. You don't feel it immediately like a broken bone. You feel it like overwhelm, like anxiety after eating, like a racing heart before bed, like bloating from healthy foods, like a body that won't exhale. So here's the big idea. Your gut and liver don't just digest and detox. They decide if your body should be in healing mode or defense mode. If your biology gets the green light or stays locked in yellow alert, and this yellow alert is the zone where most modern people live, especially if you've ever dealt with stress, trauma, overtraining, undereating, or just the chaos of life. But it's not permanent. The internal alert system can be recalibrated. That's what we'll keep exploring in this episode, because until your gut, liver, and immune system feel safe, your biology won't shift into repair. And without repair, there is no true resilience. So now that you know your gut, liver, and immune system are constantly deciding if you're safe, let's ask a more practical question. How do you know what they're saying? How do you listen to a system that doesn't use words? Simple. You learn the language of signals. And like any language, the more fluent you become, the more you realize. Your body's not silent. It's been speaking all along. It just doesn't speak in diagnosis. It speaks in patterns, in symptoms, in feelings you might have brushed off. Let's walk through a few of those signs and what they might be saying underneath the surface. Start with bloating. Bloating isn't always about eating the wrong food. It's often about a gut that's feeling inflamed, overburdened, or threatened. When digestion slows down, or when your microbiome is out of balance, food ferments longer than it should. The pressure builds up, gas accumulates, you feel distended. But that bloating, it's not failure, it's a feedback signal. Your body's saying, this system isn't calm enough to process what you're giving me. Now, that fatigue, especially the kind that hits after meals, that's often a liver flag. Here's what's happened. You eat a meal, blood sugar rises, The liver tries to manage the flood of nutrients, and if the system's already overwhelmed, you get a crash. Your body diverts energy towards metabolic cleanup and pulls it away from everything else: the brain, muscles, mood. So you feel sluggish, maybe even sleepy. That post-meal slump isn't just about carbs. It might be your liver waving a little white flag. Now let's talk about food reactivity. Ever feel like you used to tolerate a food just fine, but now it doesn't sit right with you? Or like your list of safe foods is shrinking? That's often an immune signal. When the gut lining is compromised, your immune system becomes hypersensitive, like an overprotective guard dog. It starts reacting not just to toxins or pathogens, but to harmless proteins and foods you used to enjoy. This isn't about food being bad, it's about your immune system being on edge, always scanning, always ready to pounce. And if you ever had skin flares, rashes, or hives for no reason, your immune system is talking again. Now here's one of the most overlooked signals: anxiety or a racing mind in the evening. You'd think the brain drives that, but often it comes from the gut-liver immune axis. When inflammatory signals rise towards the end of the day, either from accumulated stress, a heavy meal, or microbial imbalance, your brain picks up those signals like static on a radio. Suddenly you can't settle down. You feel wired but tired. And the cycle repeats. Here's the through line I want you to hear. These aren't random symptoms. They're organized communication. Your biology is constantly broadcasting whether it feels safe or threatened. And it doesn't whisper in Latin. It speaks in a way you already feel. The puffiness in your hands when you wake up, the irritability that hits without cause, the sniffles or mild cold after a stressful week, the way your body clenches when you try to rest. Each of these is a memo, not a malfunction, not something to numb, override, or push through. They're invitations to pause, to ask, what is this signal trying to tell me? Because here's the truth no one teaches. Your body doesn't overreact. It overcommunicates when it's being ignored for too long. So instead of chasing hacks or blaming your symptoms on just getting older, I want you to zoom out. Ask yourself, what story is my biology telling me? What would change if I stopped labeling my symptoms as problems and started listening to them as patterns? That's where we go next. Because once you recognize these signals, the next step is understanding what creates them in the first place. Spoiler, it's not always what you think. Let's go deeper now. If your body is constantly asking, am I safe? And if it's responding to threat signals coming from the inside, then the next question is obvious. What's triggering those signals in the first place? Because if you're feeling off, tired, puffy, reactive, foggy, it's not random. There's a source. And sometimes that source is so normal, so everyday, that we miss it entirely. Let's start with something hiding in plain sight: ultra-processed food. We don't just mean fast food or candy bars. I'm talking about 80% of what lines modern grocery store shelves. Granola bars, protein shakes, healthy cereals. They're filled with preservatives, seed oils, emulsifiers, and synthetic additives. Substances that confuse your gut lining and inflame your microbiome. You eat that food and your gut bacteria go, wait, what is this? The gut barrier starts to loosen. The liver gets flooded with strange molecules. The immune system ramps up trying to contain the damage. And all of this happens even if your macros look quote unquote clean. Even if the calorie count is perfect, because to your biology, foreign equals threat. And ultra-processed food feels foreign. Next up, emotional stress. We tend to separate our feelings from our physiology, but your biology doesn't. It treats a hostile work meeting or relationship argument the same way it treats a virus, with an immune response. Why? Because the brain and gut are connected through the vagus nerve, a superhighway of information. When your nervous system senses conflict or unpredictability, it tells the gut to slow digestion and shift towards defense. The gut, in turn, signals the liver and immune system to heighten surveillance. And that state of guardedness becomes your new baseline. That's why unresolved stress doesn't just weigh on your mind, it inflames your entire body. Then there's circadian disruption, late nights, inconsistent sleep, blue light at midnight, erratic eating patterns. When your biological rhythm gets thrown off, your liver's timing gets disrupted. Detoxification slows. Inflammatory signals rise at the wrong time. Your immune system becomes confused, overreacting at night, under-responding during the day. And it's not just sleep. Even when you eat matters. Late night meals, skipping breakfast, or constant grazing can all confuse your gut-liver rhythm. These organs expect a pattern. When that pattern disappears, their sense of safety vanishes from it. Then there's microbial imbalance, a fancy term for when the ecosystem in your gut gets overrun by the wrong bugs. Maybe it started after antibiotics, maybe it's been fed by sugar and stress, but when your beneficial microbes dwindle and opportunistic ones take over, your gut starts producing more inflammatory compounds. These byproducts, like lipopolysaccharides, leak into the bloodstream and trigger an immune cascade. You might not have any digestive symptoms at all, but your brain, your skin, your joints, they all feel the ripple effects. Finally, let's not forget the most overlooked threat of all, over-efforting, pushing too hard, too fast, for too long. Waking up to alarm clocks, skipping rest, forcing workouts, cutting calories, hustling to keep up. We live in a culture that celebrates grind, and your biology pays the price. It doesn't feel safe when every day feels like a battlefield. Because even if you're doing healthy things like intermittent fasting or high-intensity training, if your nervous system is already on edge, these inputs can become stressors, not support. Here's the pattern I want you to see. Threat doesn't have to feel dramatic. It often feels like modern life. Processed food, constant stimulation, emotional load, poor sleep, gut imbalance, unrelenting pressure. These are the hidden inputs that keep your safety system stuck in orange alert. And when the body stays in alert, it doesn't heal. It doesn't digest. It doesn't regulate hormones. It doesn't detoxify properly. It just manages. It just copes. And that's not what you're here for. You're not here to survive modern life. You're here to reclaim your biology from it. So the question becomes, what would it take to tell your body you can stand down now? You're safe here. And that's what we'll explore next. So now we ask the real question. How do you actually rebuild a sense of safety in your biology? Not abstractly, not theoretically, but tangibly, in a way your gut, your liver, and your immune system can recognize. Because remember, healing doesn't begin when you try harder. It begins when your system gets the signal that it can finally stand down. So let's start here. Safety begins with rhythm. Your biology craves predictability, not in a rigid, obsessive way, but in a biological tempo. The gut and liver both follow a circadian clock. They expect consistency. They expect pattern. So the first thing you can do, give your body a rhythm it can trust. Wake up at the same time each morning. Expose your eyes to natural light. Eat meals around the same time each day. Wind down in the evening without stimulation. These aren't life hacks. They're safety cues. They tell your body the world is stable. You can shift from defense to repair. Next, feed your body warmth and ease. Too often we go from restriction to optimization. Cold smoothies, fasting windows, intense workouts, stimulants. But in a system that already feels threatened, those inputs add friction. Instead, start with grounding inputs. Warm meals, cooked vegetables, easy to digest proteins. Stews, soups, teas. These aren't just comfort foods. They're physiological green lights. They require less digestive strain. They soothe the gut lining. They signal calm. And that brings us to real food. Not perfect food, not Instagrammable food. Just real, recognizable. Fiber, polyphenols, minerals. These are the language your microbes understand. They feed your inner ecosystem and help your gut produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which actively reduce inflammation and seal the gut barrier. You'll hear a lot more about butyrate in the next episode because it's one of the most powerful signals of safety your gut can produce. But even without supplements, you can encourage butyrate just by eating more prebiotic fibers. Think green bananas, cooked and cooled potatoes, oats, legumes, and even onions or garlic if your system tolerates them. Another piece, reduce the noise. Your body doesn't heal in chaos, and that includes internal chaos. Too many inputs, too much multitasking, too much stimulation. So try this. Pick 1 hour a day when your system gets a break. No screens, no decisions, no productivity. Just quiet. Movement, breath, maybe a walk, maybe sunlight on your face, maybe 5 deep exhales before your next meeting. This isn't about being zen, it's about downshifting your threat physiology. Because every time you signal calm, your vagus nerve activates, gut motility improves, immune cells regulate, and the liver gets permission to start repairing instead of defending. And here's the simplest one of all. Make your inputs match your state. If you're exhausted, don't fast harder. If you're anxious, don't train harder. If you're inflamed, don't pile on more supplements. Start with subtraction, not addition. What can you remove that's creating friction? What can you simplify? Because here's what most people miss. Safety isn't created through more effort. It's created through less threat. So instead of asking, what else do I need to do? Ask, what would my body feel relieved to not have to process right now? Maybe it's that snack that always bloats you. Maybe it's scrolling late into the night. Maybe it's a daily choice to stop overriding what your body's been saying for years. Rebuilding safety isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Simple patterns, simple meals, simple breathing. These are not beginner steps. They're biological rewiring, foundational inputs that reorient your compass before you chase optimization. Because when your body feels safe, everything changes, and that's where we're headed. So far, we've talked a lot about what happens when the body doesn't feel safe. Now, let's flip the lens. Let's talk about what happens when your body finally does. Because safety isn't just a feeling. It's a physiological shift. It shows up in your gut, in your immune system, in your mitochondria, in your skin, your sleep, your blood sugar, your mood. So let's break it down. When your body feels safe, the first thing that improves is digestion. Why? Because digestion is a rest and digest process. Literally, your vagus nerve has to be active. Your nervous system has to be calm. The moment that happens, your stomach starts producing more acid. Your pancreas releases digestive enzymes, and your gut moves food along with coordinated contractions called motility. No more bloating, no more backup, no more feeling like food just sits in your stomach. Your gut lining gets tighter, your microbiome begins to shift, you produce more butyrate, more secretory IgA, your gut's immune coating, and fewer pro-inflammatory cytokines. You're not just digesting food better, you're digesting life better. And it doesn't stop there. When the gut-liver immune axis feels safe, your immune system switches from attack mode to tolerance mode. That means fewer random food reactions, less histamine overload, reduced skin flares or joint stiffness, more resilience after stress or travel or missed sleep. In simple terms, your immune system stops looking for a fight and starts saving its energy for when it actually matters. Now let's talk about your mitochondria, those little energy factories inside your cells. When your system is under threat, mitochondria shift into defense mode. They burn less fuel, produce more reactive oxygen species, and trigger inflammation. But when your body feels safe, mitochondria shift back into flexibility. They become more efficient, less leaky, more responsive. You produce cleaner energy, your blood sugar becomes more stable, Your cravings shrink, your brain fog lifts. And yes, we'll talk a lot more about mitochondria in the next domain, Energize. Just know this: nothing restores mitochondrial function faster than creating a safe internal terrain. Then there's your hormones. When the body doesn't feel safe, cortisol rises, DHEA falls, progesterone tanks, thyroid hormones downshift. Your body sacrifices fertility, libido, metabolism, and mood in favor of survival. But when you restore safety, you stop getting those mid-cycle mood crashes. You stop waking up wired at 3 a.m. Your cycle regulates. Your libido returns. Your thyroid doesn't feel like it's a constant lagging behind your life. All of this from a shift in biological safety. Let me say that again. Your body doesn't wait for perfection. It responds to safety. This is the greatest relief and the greatest responsibility. Because once you know this, everything changes. You stop chasing new protocols. You stop blaming your willpower. You stop layering more inputs onto a system that just wants you to slow down and listen. You realize healing isn't about overpowering biology. It's about partnering with it, creating the conditions where safety is felt, not forced. When you do that, your body starts to respond faster than you thought possible. You tolerate more foods. You recover quicker from workouts. You handle stress with more ease. You sleep through the night. Your skin clears. Your bowels normalize. Your brain wakes up. Your inflammation drops, even without meds or magic bullets. Because when your safety returns, so does your capacity. Your biology finally gets to do what it's always been capable of. Just needed permission. Now let's bring it home. If there's one message I hope you take from today, it's this: you are not broken. You're biologically intelligent. And your symptoms are not sabotage. They're signals. Signals that your body is paying attention, that it is responding, that it wants to protect you, even if it doesn't always feel good. Your fatigue, your bloating, your anxiety, your reactivity, they're not flaws to fight. They're feedback to decode. And when we start listening to those signals, when we ask, what is this really telling me? That's when everything begins to shift. Not through force, not through 10-step plans, but through safety. Because until your biology feels safe, it will not optimize. It will guard, it will slow, it will conserve. But when safety returns, digestion improves, hormones rebalance, energy flows, you adapt again. And let's be honest, most of us have spent years skipping this step. We've gone straight to fasting, to training, to tracking, to supplementing. We've treated our bodies like projects to be managed instead of ecosystems to be trusted. But that changes here. Because if your biology is constantly asking, am I safe? Then our job isn't to guess, it's to listen, it's to respond, to make the internal world feel less like a battlefield and more like home. And here's the best part. You don't need a perfect diet or a perfect lifestyle to start. You just need one signal of safety, one regular meal, 1 hour without stimulation, one warm breakfast instead of a cold shake, one moment when your biology exhales. That's enough to start recalibration. And next week, we're going deeper. Because if this episode was about the question your body asks, am I safe? Then episode 5 is about where that question gets answered, inside the gut-liver axis. We'll explore what that really means, beyond the buzzwords. We'll talk about why digestion isn't just about food, it's about communication. We'll cover how the liver isn't just a detox organ, it's your metabolic air traffic controller. And we'll finally make sense of what butyrate is, how it works, and why most people are deficient without knowing it. And yes, we'll talk about Biomen, the butyrate ingredient I helped develop, how it works, what makes it different, and why it might be one of the most powerful tools for calming the gut-liver immune axis. If you've ever felt like your metabolism is stuck, your gut is unpredictable, or your inflammation won't go down, episode 5 will connect the dots. because this isn't just about biology. It's about the story your system has been trying to tell you. And it's time we finally listened. So here's your invitation. Tonight, before bed, ask yourself, did my body feel safe today? Not productive, not successful, safe. If the answer is no, don't blame yourself. Just get curious. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your health is to stop optimizing and start reassuring. Your body is not waiting on perfection. It's waiting on permission. And now, maybe for the first time in a long time, it has it. You've been listening to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we bridge cutting-edge science with real-life application to help you reclaim your health one directional shift at a time. To learn more, visit us at www.themetaboliccompass.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Metabolic Compass. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps others find their way back to alignment too. Recalibrate your biology, rediscover your direction.